Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Revolutionary Sports Show. I'm Corey Sullivan.
And I'm Brian Duchaine, back at it.
We are back at it here for Week 11. Now, we have some things going on in Week 11. Jared Goff is going to be his first start. The number one draft pick in this year's draft is going to get the start this week in LA facing the Dolphins. I will be going to the game to see what Goff has to offer. Some other things going on in the league. Christine Michael was cut by the Seahawks, but was immediately picked up by the Packers. I'm excited for him. Hope that he can get something going in Green Bay, something that he wasn't able to rekindle in Seattle. And Robert Quinn apparently was hospitalized this past week. Not quite sure. Some people are saying seizures, some just undisclosed injuries. So definitely prayers for him or whatever that will help him get through the week and hopefully on the field on Sunday. But I want to talk about this first matchup today on Thursday Night Football. We got the Saints and we got the Panthers. NFC South Division rivalry game. Very important win for both of them. Brian, who do you got going in this game, and what's your take on it?
Well, for this one, it's kind of hard for me to pick because you have New Orleans, who their offense is outrageous. You have Drew Brees, obviously just throwing balls looking like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning in his prime, just going off out there and looking like one of those elite quarterbacks that we talk about. But then on the other side, you have Carolina, who's coming up, and they have a pretty good defense, younger defense, but they're starting to step up a little bit. Cam's starting to get it together. We saw him slip up last week a little bit, and they've been on a tear lately after starting 1-5, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think Carolina's out of it. Personally, I don't think they're going to do much, but they have shown some fire. They're at home, and I think I'm going with Carolina in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be rough. 3-6. They pretty much got to win. They got to win out just to even be considered. At this point, I think it wouldn't hurt for a higher draft pick for them. But they have Cam Newton, and they're a very good team, the reigning Super Bowl runner-ups, and they need something. They need something to cling on to for next season. And now that everybody's healthy, injuries are really, or not even injuries, turnovers have been what has been plaguing them throughout the year. It's something that they lost last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, gave up a 17-point lead, and turnovers was what killed them. Kelvin Benjamin got stripped by Marcus Peters to set up the game-winning field goal, and Cam Newton threw a pick to Eric Berry, the pick six that really sealed the deal for them. And on the other hand, we got the Saints who got robbed. In my eyes, they absolutely got robbed. Drew Brees and Brandon Cooks completed an amazing play with 1:26 to go. Drew Brees, like you said, in incredible, legendary fashion, just threw it, looked like more double coverage. One guy over the top, one guy underneath, and Brandon Cooks came down with the touchdown in clutch time, and then field goal. The extra point was blocked by Justin Simmons, and then Will Parks returned it, but he stepped out of bounds. I don't know how the referees didn't see that he stepped out, but doesn't really matter. The Broncos went away with the victory. The Saints picked up the loss. So, like I said, the Saints have been playing great so far this year, but I think this is a game that Carolina can't afford to lose. Neither of these teams can afford to lose, but I think that they have a chance to make it to the playoffs. Both of these teams. The lead in the NFC South is only 2 games. It's not a very impressive division, and somebody has to come out of that division. So I think Carolina will handle business at home because they've been playing well, and they need it. They need it more than anybody at this point. But, moving down the list, we got the Browns. The Browns have been absolutely terrible, 0-10 this year, facing off against the Steelers. Who do you got in this game? Do you think – I know who you got in this game, but – did the Browns have any chance to pick up a victory?
Yeah, last week we saw the Browns come out, and they actually played pretty decent for the first maybe 10 minutes of the game. And it wasn't really a shock that they came out. I believe they were at home, and they looked okay. And you're like, okay, the Browns, is this the time that they come out and actually do something? And then you look up and the Ravens are up 28-7, and you're like, okay, how did that happen? And it's just what the Browns are. They have nothing this year, and there's absolutely nobody on the team except for Terrell Pryor. We say it every week. And then Joe Hayden, who you haven't seen much of him this year because he's been injured. So you can't really rely on anybody really on their defense that's going to step up without him in the secondary. You can't really rely on anybody on the offense because you have guys like Cody Kessler starting, and it's just nothing about the Browns really intrigues me to pick them any week. And there was that one week they played the Jets. The Jets looked like trash. I picked them then. But Pittsburgh, even though Roethlisberger is still trying to figure it out coming off of his injury, he is still injured. I would take an injured quarterback up against the Browns any day of the week. And it looks like the Steelers are 8-point favorites against the Browns. I think they cover that spread easily. I say Pittsburgh wins by 17. What's your analysis on this?
Yeah, I don't think there needs to be much analysis on this. I think the Browns are pretty much decided to pack it in. If anything, if they win this game, I think if they tried their hardest, if they played Cody Kessler the whole game, if Corey Coleman was ready to go and Jamie Collins has been playing pretty well for them, the team is not an awful team with what they have, but I don't think that they have any desire to win. I think they should play Cody Kessler to potentially pick up a draft pick this offseason, maybe use him as trade bait, maybe use him as a backup. But I'm pretty sure they're going quarterback in this draft. And unfortunately, the 49ers are only one game away, so they can't really afford to win a game at this point in time if they really want that number one pick. And I'm a firm believer that teams really do tank games. I think that is a real thing. And although all day long they'll tell you we don't tank games and we try our hardest, I don't think that's the truth. And it happens in all leagues. The 76ers do it every year in basketball, and the Browns seem like they do it every year in the NFL. So it's another one of those weeks. I think the Steelers will win by default. You know who will play well. Antonio Brown will play well. Le'Veon Bell will play well. Roethlisberger has been playing better since he tore his meniscus last month against the Dolphins. He's been getting better and better. Last week was a real show of how much he's improved, but they just came up short. Speaking of the team that they came up short with, we've got the Dallas Cowboys up next after this game, and they're looking good. They're facing the Ravens this next week, on Sunday, and the Ravens are looking good. The Ravens' number one rush defense this year, and on the flip side, Ezekiel Elliott went up against the number one rush defense earlier this year. It used to be the Green Bay Packers, and he put up a career high 152 yards on them. The only thing I'm worried about for Ezekiel Elliott is, he's almost at the 200 carry mark already, and it's only, week 10 or he's only gone through 10 weeks, and he's on pace for 352. Not quite reaching the curse of 370 just yet, but that's a concern. He's only a rookie. I'm not saying that he's not an amazing talent, but for a rookie to be up there, there's AP wasn't even up there. There's tons of guys up and down the league that are greats, that are potential Hall of Famers that haven't even reached, the 300 levels in their rookie season. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially with the Cowboys looking as good as they are, definitely looking like a playoff team. Once we get to the playoffs, then, the hits are going to be a lot stronger. The calls are going to be a lot less. It's a different game in the playoffs. And I guess that's the only thing I'm worried about in the long run for the Cowboys. But right now, I like what I'm seeing from the Ravens defense, but the offense just is no good. I've never been a huge Flacco fan, but especially now, he's just not really producing. And that run game, Terrence West is trying his best, but they're really, against the top teams, they're not real threats to anybody. Steve Smith Sr. pulled in a touchdown last week, and a couple other guys, Perriman, pulled in a nice touchdown, but the Ravens the offense doesn't scare anybody, and the Cowboys are rolling right now. The hottest team in the NFL, even better than the Seahawks currently. We'll see when they play each other, hopefully down the road. But I'm going with the Cowboys. It's hard to think that anybody can knock them off right now.
Yeah, we got Dallas, one of the hottest teams in the game right now. Like you said, Ezekiel Elliott looking like a monster out there. Gutsy call down late in the game, and they run him up the middle, and he just takes off. That was crazy to see the Cowboys escape with a win on an Ezekiel Elliott 35-yard run to seal that. That was nuts. And then you have Baltimore. They beat up on the Browns, but I'm still not sold on them. Like you said, not a big run game. Not really sold on Flacco. Not really much going on. And, this game at Jerry World in Dallas, it's going to be tough for Baltimore to really do anything in Dallas. I'm going to take the Cowboys by 14 in this one, even though the spread says 7.
It's very fair. I think the Cowboys will dominate as well. But we got your boys as the next game facing off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Detroit Lions taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jaguars have absolutely looked awful. They look like they've looked every single year. David Caldwell has terrible drafts. I'm not giving him this last season because he had a great draft by default. Jalen Ramsey fell to him. You have to take him. Miles Jack fell to him in the second round. You have to take him. My little brother could have made those picks. So he gets no credit for those. He's been with the organization since 2013, which they had an absolutely awful draft. Then they traded away Blaine Gabbert for nothing, which is understandable. You're not going to get anything for Blaine Gabbert. But the thing is Blake Bortles is his guy. And Bortles, when you have a quarterback like that, you bank everything on that. You know your paycheck comes from this guy. And I don't know why you would want this guy to be your guy, but that's his dude. And the thing about Bortles is he's not improving. He's getting worse, it seems like. Last year was a decent year. His touchdowns were up. His interceptions were high, but you thought maybe he could take that next step this year. And he hasn't been able to do that. The run game has been awful. TJ Yeldon out of Alabama is all right. Nothing too great about him. Hasn't shown any flashes of being a top back in the league. And it's hard for him to. How could he behind Bortles, who just turns the ball over way too much for a team to be successful? And the defense doesn't look good. And on the other side of the ball, the line on the league, they're the ones that need to get a running game. Once they get that going, they'll be absolutely unstoppable. The defense has been a bend, not break defense, not the greatest defense, not the worst defense, but they've been keeping them in games, and Stafford has got this offense rolling right now. So I'm rolling with the Lions in this one. Who do you got?
Man, this one, I don't even think I really have to think about this one because I'm a Lions fan. So it's pretty much going to be a Lions pick almost every week. If I can pick them, if it's somebody that's actually good that they're playing, I might pick against them. But we're talking about Jacksonville. And like you said, Bortles, he pads his stats in garbage time, but outside of garbage time, not really sold on him. And Detroit playing at home, they play decent at home. They struggle on the road a lot, but a lot of their upcoming games are at home, and that'll be interesting to see how Matt Stafford, Marvin Jones, Golden Tate really playing well lately, and their run game is really kind of what's a little bit sketchy. You have Dwayne Washington, who we talk about him quite a bit on the show, and it's just not really a lot there. Amir Abdullah went out for the season. Theo Riddick looking pretty nice as a passing back, kind of a Darren Sproles type, but Detroit is favored by 6.5, and beginning of the season, you never thought you were going to see them when they were favored by 6.5. And now they're in first place, and they're coming out swinging. I'm going to take Detroit at home in this one. I don't know if they cover the spread at 6.5. I say they win by maybe 3, maybe 6. I think it'll be closer than everybody expects it to be, but the Lions pull it out. And that streak is still going. I don't know how, but it is. Every game the Lions have played this year, they've either won or lost by 1 score. So maybe we can go 16 games with them winning or losing by a score. Who knows? But I'm picking the Lions in this one.
Very nice. Speaking of games that are going to be close, I expect a shootout for this next upcoming game. We got the Titans and the Colts. The Titans potentially the most potent offense in the league the last 6 weeks, 34 points per game, led by the Marcus Mariota, the Flying Hawaiian. Sorry, Shane Victorino, but it's his nickname for now. He's been balling. AFC Player of the Week this last week, and he's been playing great. Him, DeMarco Murray, have been a great duo in that backfield for the Titans. The defense is playing all right, good enough to win as of recently. And the Colts, they got in. The defense has been doing okay. Frank Gore's been, handling his business, not doing anything too fantastic, but, keeping defenses honest. Andrew Luck's been staying out of trouble. Couple of turnovers these last few weeks, but haven't been too detrimental for the team. The defense has been atrocious. That's just it's just how it is, and I think it won't be a low-scoring game at all. I think it'll be a shootout. Like I said, Titans 34 points a game these last 6 weeks. Doesn't look like they'll slow down against the Colts, but on the other hand, Andrew Luck can throw with anybody in the league. So I expect a close game, but I'm going with the Titans just because they're the hottest offense in the game right now.
Man, and we saw it last week with the Titans just wiping out Green Bay. That was crazy, putting up points in the 40s, and never thought I'd see the day where the Titans were just creaming the Packers. But this one, I think it's going to be tough to win in Indianapolis, even though Indianapolis has those struggles. I think Andrew Luck is eventually going to find his stride. We've seen it a couple games where he's come out and he's been a little bit shaky, and then he kind of gets into a groove. They try to dig themselves out of a hole, or they build up a lead and try to keep it. And I think this one is one that the Colts win at home, and they're picked by 3, and I think they do it. I think they do it by, I'll say 7, the Colts win by in that one. And it's kind of tough to pick because there are a couple struggling teams a little bit. Tennessee coming up, but Indianapolis at home, I'm going to go with them with my pick.
Very nice pick. Very nice pick. We got in the next week, or in the next game, not the next week. We have a team coming off a bye week, the Buffalo Bills, 4-5, have lost a lot of games, 4 in a row, 3 in a row, actually. I apologize. 3 games in a row, facing off against the Cincinnati Bengals, one of the worst teams in the league, and even less impressive than their 3-5 record is they haven't really beat anybody. They've only beat the Jets and the Browns. Those are 2 of their wins. So in my eyes, they really have 1 win this season, and they just don't look very good. They look decent enough to play with the Giants. I don't think that they should have won that game. I'm glad the Giants won that game, but Andy Dalton just has had a rough time scoring touchdowns. They're not coming in bunches like they were last year. Tyler Eifert just coming back a couple weeks ago, and he was his favorite target in the red zone, especially last year, and they're kind of getting that chemistry going. Unfortunately, they're getting ready to be close to mid-season form while everybody's already in mid to late season form. So it's going to be some more tough sledding for the Cincinnati Bengals. And on the other hand, the Bills are rolling. They went into Seattle and almost beat the Seahawks. Came down to a couple last plays, and Tyrod Taylor playing just as good as a game manager as anybody in the game, and LaShawn McCoy. The team goes as he goes. If he gets over 100, they're 4-1. Only lost to the Seahawks in Seattle, which was a great game. Great game for the Bills. I didn't think that they would be that close, but Shady is just elusive. He's elusive. Tyrod played great. He was elusive. And Robert Woods had the game of his life, 160 yards. Who knows if we'll ever see that again. But they're a team that's playing well together. Their defense is doing well. I believe they're still leading the league in sacks. And if they can get to Dalton, that's where he struggles. He struggles when people are able to get to him. And I think the Bills will be able to handle them in Cincinnati. I got the Bills winning this one.
Yeah, and Cincinnati is actually a 3-point favorite in Vegas. And I guess we're both picking against the spread this time because you look at it, Buffalo, Cincinnati. Buffalo has struggled a little bit. They had a hot start, then they've lost quite a bit, I believe, in the last 4 or 5 weeks. I believe they've only won maybe 1 game out of those games they played. But like you said, they played great in Seattle, got it together, and essentially like one of the toughest places to play in the league. And they came in and looked pretty comfortable. And Tyrod Taylor couldn't even hear what was going on in his helmet, and he was kind of scrambling around, trying to hear what the offensive coordinator was saying, had to burn a couple timeouts and get guys into the line of scrimmage to tell them what the play call was. And they still came out and almost stole one from the Hawks if it wasn't for the Seahawks offense actually showing up for once this season and putting up 31 points, which Seahawks I think are going to be a force to reckon with the rest of the season. But the Bills, it looked like they showed some fire. They showed some heart for the first time in a few weeks. McCoy was running wild. Tyrod Taylor, like you said, game manager. He does manage the game very well. And although Cincinnati is at home in this one and they are the favorites in Vegas, I'm going with the Bills all day in this one.
Looks like we got a lot of games that are similar. I think we'll have the same outcome or outlook on this upcoming game. Maybe we'll see. But we got the Buccaneers facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs 7-2. I believe everyone in the AFC West is tied for. Not everybody, but the Broncos, Raiders, and Chiefs are also tied 7-2 at the top of the division there, and it's looking good. That's a very impressive division. If you ask anybody, it should be anyway. But you look at the Chiefs, their offense isn't that impressive. The Spencer Ware's been doing okay with Jamal Charles is out. Obviously, you want Jamal Charles, your star running back, in there. But I believe he had his other knee scoped probably done for the season. Just precautionary. Maybe he'll show up for the playoffs, but definitely not a smart idea. Should be shut down if he had another knee scope. Alex Smith, one of the game's leading game managers. That's just what he does. Check downs, gets first downs, and has made a career off just managing the clock. And that's just what Andy Reid loves to do. So he's built a career off that. And 14-plus turnover margin for that defense is really what has led them to the record that they have. They haven't been overly impressive in any area of the field, but they've just won the turnover battle in the NFL. That's what helps you get wins. So on the other side, the Buccaneers, Jameis Winston has been playing great as of recently. This is exactly what you want to see from a number one pick, so a guy that makes some progression. This is exactly what I was saying Blake Bortles was not doing. Jameis Winston early on in the year had a lot of turnovers, but has cut down tremendously, especially in the last 4 games on those 10 touchdowns, 3 turnovers. But the defense just isn't there yet. The team in general just isn't there yet, and they've been struggling. They need something from the special teams. Their field goal kicker, Roberto Aguayo, has only made 2 kicks over 40 yards, 2 for 6 over 40 yards, and they got to do better. Humphreys isn't really scaring anybody. Their special teams game reminds me of when the Seahawks had Brian Walters as their punt returner and Jermaine Kearse as their kick returner. It's just nothing about Humphreys scares anybody. And he's a decent receiver. He's like Brian Walters and Jermaine Kearse combined. Jermaine Kearse is a decent receiver and not a great kick returner. And Brian Walters is he can punt return, I guess. I wouldn't really give him a grade, but that's where the Buccaneers are at. They just have way too many holes to fill right now, and the Chiefs are, one of the top teams, not even in the AFC, in the NFL in general, looking for a Super Bowl bid, and I'm rolling with the Chiefs in this one.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, 7.5-point underdogs, and the Chiefs are at home. The Chiefs have another one of those stadiums. It's like CenturyLink. It's one of the loudest in the league, and I believe that they did that Guinness Book of World Records thing and found out that allegedly the Chiefs Stadium was louder than CenturyLink. I think it was rigged, and I think CenturyLink still got it. But we'll say it's the second hardest place to play in the league, and you got a team like Tampa Bay going in there, which Tampa Bay, when they were 0-8, came in here and looked decent and almost beat the Seahawks after, I believe, going up 20-0 in the first half. So you never know with Tampa Bay. They're facing some injuries, and their best receiver goes on IR, and there's just something that's not right with them. And, you have Jameis Winston, who's still learning everything, and he's a second-year guy. But going into a place like Kansas City, it's not really the place to still be learning things. I think Kansas City is going to take them out pretty easy in this one. I'm going to stick with the Chiefs. But Tampa Bay could be a surprise, upset, dark horse in this one. But I'm still rolling with Kansas City for the safe pick, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Tampa play out of their minds and end up stealing a win. But Kansas City at home, 7.5-point favorites. I'm not picking against that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what the odds are in this next game, but I imagine they're in the Giants' favor. We got the New York Giants at home facing off against the Chicago Bears. The Bears beat the Minnesota Vikings, who it seems like anybody could beat on any given Sunday right now, are absolutely free-falling. And Jay Cutler had a decent game against the Vikings, but he's reverted back to his old ways. They got blown out last week, and they're really not playing for anything except a new quarterback. Cutler, I'm sure he's trying his hardest to stay relevant, probably auditioning for a backup role next year. But with Alshon Jeffrey suspended, there's really no hope for this offense to get it going this week, especially against the Giants. The Giants playing very well right now. Eli, who's averaging about a turnover per game, a little over a turnover per game. But it's generally what you expect from Eli. Still high yardage, high number of touchdowns, especially with that potent offense. Defense is playing well enough to win. I think the Giants will win this one easily.
Yeah, I'm picking the Giants only because it's at home, and I think it was at Chicago. You kind of throw in the coldness factor of Chicago. You throw in the wind. You throw in some weather, and at that point, it can be anybody's game. But playing in New York, where the Giants are so comfortable playing with Odell, Sterling Shepard, Victor Cruz, Eli Manning, like you said, averaging about 1 turnover a game. Jay Cutler has actually looked decent, and he actually has been serviceable when he came back. But like you said, Alshon Jeffrey suspended for 4 games, and without him, I'm just not real sold on their running game either. They had Matt Forte, and then they got rid of him, and he went somewhere else. Now they got Langford, and they're just kind of trying to experiment a little bit with who they got in the backfield, and it just hasn't really worked out for them. And I think on the road at New York, I'm picking the Giants in that one.
Sounds good. I alluded to this team earlier on before I'm talking about them right now. The Minnesota Vikings free falling right now, 4 losses in a row, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Now the game is in Minnesota, but Arizona is a whole different team right now. They're playing very, very hot. They're 3-1-1 with this one solo tie with the Seattle Seahawks, but they're playing very well. Carson Palmer not playing at the elite level that he was last season. Turnovers up, touchdowns down. David Johnson, although is picking up the slack that Palmer is producing right now, and he's balling right now. He's arguably better than Le'Veon Bell, arguably the top running back in the league right now. And Larry Fitzgerald, the old man, is still finding a way to do it. This defense, Chandler Jones, as you'd expect, is one of the top sack masters in the league, leading the team right now with 7. And the secondary is only second to the Legion of Boom, I believe. Their secondary is a very, very good team led by Patrick Peterson. And it's going to be rough to beat them, especially with the way that the Vikings are playing right now. Not that Sam Bradford is playing bad. He's playing a lot better than I think a lot of people, including myself, would think that he'd be playing at this point in the season. To be honest, I didn't even think he would make it this far into the season before getting hurt. So good thing that he's been durable, and him and Stephon Diggs, and that passing game has been doing well. But that special teams has been doing awful. They just cut their not long time, but their kicker for a couple years, Blair Walsh, and there's a lot of question marks around that team right now. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing with their kick game, with their continuity. Their 4 straight losses since starting 5-0. They were the hottest team in the NFL. Now who knows what they're doing? So I'm never comfortable with a team like that. And so I'm going with the Cardinals. The Cardinals are hot, and Vikings are not.
I don't know how, but the Vikings are actually favored in this game. I'm guessing just because it's at home. They're a 2-point pick in Vegas. If I was down there, I'd put money against them all day. With Arizona going in there, you're playing in Minnesota, sure, which you think maybe you could come out a popsicle if the conditions are right. And like we saw in the playoffs, nobody can play in the frozen weather. And I think that might be the only real chance that the Vikings have. They have lost 4 in a row, got beat by the Lions, and they, in probably the worst fashion I've ever seen, they take the lead with 25 seconds. They let the Lions come back, kick a field goal, and then they lose to them in overtime with Golden Tate doing a backflip in the end zone. So I don't know what it is with Minnesota. Even when they take the lead with 25 seconds left, they still end up losing. I don't know what it is with them, and I don't know why they've lost 4 in a row. There's no real explanation for it other than Sam Bradford wasn't that good to begin with. You have Adrian Peterson out, Teddy Bridgewater out, and everybody thought they didn't need him, and now all of a sudden everybody's wondering where they're at because they really could use them at this point. Jerick McKinnon, Matt Asiata coming out of the backfield. They're not any Adrian Peterson. Sam Bradford just doesn't have the threat that Teddy Bridgewater does. They can get outside the pocket, roll out, run with it. Eventually teams figure you out, and once they figure out a pocket passer like Sam Bradford, it's pretty much over at that point. I'm taking Arizona in this one. I'm going against the spread. I think Arizona can do it at Minnesota, and as long as Seattle keeps winning, it's not really going to matter if Arizona wins. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Arizona in this one. We'll see what happens, but I don't know how the Vikings were a pick to begin with in Vegas.
You're right. I don't know. Their defense has been playing pretty well. I'll give them that. The defense has been playing absolutely stout. I didn't give them a shout-out, so definitely shout-out to that Vikings defense. But, moving on to the afternoon games, getting to the game that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now, the L.A. Rams. Big news, starting Jared Goff this weekend against Miami Dolphins. And the game is in L.A., and the Dolphins are playing very well right now. Their offensive line has been the heart and soul of their team these last couple games. Jay Ajayi behind that offensive line has been balling, to say the least. 2 games of 200, a game of 100 yards, and just barely short of 100 20 yards short actually of total offense this last week. So didn't get there, but the emergence of this offensive line has been great, and getting the ball out of Tannehill's hands is what has led this team to success. He hasn't turned the ball over in these last 4 weeks, and they've been playing good football. This is what this is what experts expected the team to look like when they picked them to be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl this year, and they're looking like it right now. Now, on the other side, LA Rams not looking great. Defense is looking good. Aaron Donald is holding it down there on the defensive line. And Robert Quinn, don't know really what's going on with him. Haven't heard a whole lot about it. Definitely hoping that he gets better with whatever's ailing him. But that's a huge loss for the Rams. That's, their leading outside rusher every game. Every year. He's their Pro Bowler. So definitely want him to get healthy with whatever's ailing him. But, without him in the game, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough to stop this rushing attack with the way this offensive line is playing. They've only given up 3 sacks in the last 4 games. That's amazing. That's pretty good for them. And Goff, the man of the hour. This is his time to shine. And unfortunately, like I said, everyone right now is kind of getting over those early season struggles. They're in mid-season form, and that's not exactly where you want to put your rookie quarterback. Now, although it is at home, so that's something. He is playing at home. He's a California dude. But, his first football game, I got a couple questions for you. Sorry if you're not prepared. But he threw for 450 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks against Northwestern in his first game at Cal. Do you know who the quarterback for Northwestern was when he was facing them for his first game in college?
I'm going to guess Trevor Siemian.
Very nice, sir. Trevor Siemian was starting for Northwestern. Number 22 Northwestern. And, of course, as usual, Goff lost. I'm not a huge fan of Goff. I think he has a great arm. I think that Todd Gurley is loving life right now, that the box is finally going to be emptied a little bit, and there's going to be some daylight in those holes. And I'm sure Tavon Austin is excited to show people that he deserved that offseason contract. And I'm sure Kenny Britt is ready to go with a new quarterback, although he was doing fine with Keenum. But it was time. It was time for this to happen, and I'm excited to see. I think Laremy Tunsil was the right pick at number 1. I don't think that Goff should have been your guy for this organization. I think that he's a good quarterback, but he doesn't win. That's my thing. It's everyone's so worried about the fantasy stats and touchdowns that they don't get the guy that's going to win you games. You look at Russell Wilson and some of these other guys that don't put up Tom Brady, Peyton Manning numbers, and they win games, and that's what matters. At the end of the day, your team doesn't make the playoffs or get to the Super Bowl based on how many touchdowns he has. Yes, it's nice, but Goff in college was 14-23. So, I mean, you get all the fantasy stats you want from the guy, but if he's not going to win you any games, nobody's going to care at the end of the day. And that's what – Jeff Fisher needs this guy to win now. Otherwise, he's gone. Nobody really wanted to take over the team when they were in St. Louis, but now that they're in L.A., L.A. is the hot market. It's a hot commodity, and you have to win if you're going to be in L.A. So I think this is going to be a rough finish to the season for the Rams. I don't think that they're in a position to make a playoff run, especially when their best player is the punter. Shout out Johnny Hecker. Had his first 70-yard punt. Not this last week. 2 weeks ago, he had a 75-yarder. Last week, a 78-yarder. So his first 2 70-yard punts in his career. Never even had one in college, I believe. So definitely shout out to him. And he's really the MVP of the team. He's the one that continues to pin teams back, and they always win low-scoring games because of the field position game. So shout out to Johnny. And, getting back to this game, I think that I think the Rams will get the win. I think that they'll win this game. I'm sure – I don't know what the spread is. I'm sure the Dolphins, based on the rookie quarterback, maybe have the advantage, but I'm going with the home team in this one.
Man, risky pick and picking his friend's team to win. I guess I could respect that a little bit. Like you said, Johnny Hecker, he might be juiced. I think he might get drug tested soon, kicking 70 yards. At some point the NFL is going to catch on to him. Johnny Hecker, they're coming for you. They're going to test you. And watch out, because at some point you're going to have to lay off the roids a little bit and just kind of go naturally and just start kicking the ball without roids. But no, I'm just joking. I'm sure he's a good guy. I'm sure he doesn't do that kind of stuff. But dang, 70 yards. That's pretty nasty for a punt. But for this one, like you mentioned, Jared Goff, it's just a different game in the NFL. And if you sit out the whole season and then you come out and everything's on your shoulders, I just think he's going to have kind of the first game jitters when he comes out there trying to put the team on his back, carry a struggling team right now. And I don't think that you can really realistically expect Goff to just come out and be the guy that he was in college and be that first-round draft pick and expect him to go up against the Dolphins, which the Dolphins are okay. You know, we've seen them struggle a little bit this year. They haven't been nearly as good as everybody thought that high-paid defensive line was going to be. But like you said, they've gotten it together, and they've looked real good the last few weeks. And they are a 1.5-point favorite in L.A., which is never a good sign when you're favored on the road against the Rams, especially in a stadium that holds 100,000 people. It's just not really a good thing to be kind of the underdog at home. In the Rams, I just don't see them coming out and winning this one. Todd Gurley just hasn't really looked very good. Maybe it's the quarterback. Maybe there just wasn't really a huge threat there, but I don't think Jared Goff is going to be the answer in this one, and I'm picking Miami to escape with that 1.5-point victory. I'm going to take them by 3.
All right, definitely understandable. It's hard to choose a rookie quarterback, but, you know, just going with the home team, you know, I know that everything that I said probably goes against with my pick because I said that Goff didn't win, then I said he's going to win his first game. So we'll see how it goes. But speaking of a game that's much easier to choose, I think we got the Patriots and the 49ers. I'm going with the Patriots. I'll give you a little bit of analysis if you need it. Tom Brady and the Patriots are a little upset that the Seahawks picked up the victory. A good no call. As a Seahawks fan, I know I'm a Seahawks fan, and I know some Patriots fans are probably like, oh, Cam held, and, you know, Gronk fully extended his arms. It was a good no call. Both of them fouled, and Gronk still had a chance to catch it at the very end, which was very impressive. That's a strong man. And fortunately, the Seahawks came away with a victory. But anyway, the Patriots will be looking for revenge, and they played great. 2 tight ends, Martellus Bennett played great, Gronk played great, and the defense didn't look that good. And unfortunately, the 49ers won't be able to exploit anything that the Patriots may or may not have showed last week because they're not very good at all. They don't have a good defense. They have a quarterback that tries really hard, but the talent around him just not very good. And so, and not that he's an outstanding quarterback either, but he's what they got. And, you know, he almost threw for 400 yards against the Saints a couple weeks ago, but it isn't going to be enough now. So I'm going with the Patriots in this one.
Yeah, the Patriots actually played pretty well, and I thought the Seahawks played way better than they were going to, especially at New England. They don't usually play very well at New England, and New England always so good at home, and the Seahawks go in and steal a win in Boston, which is crazy because I know even Seahawks fans were a little bit nervous about it. I personally was, and then you have Martellus Bennett and Gronkowski going off. Gronk punctured lung and is not likely to play this week against San Francisco, but we did see what Martellus Bennett can do when you put him up to the task, and I think he's going to have a big day against the 49ers. Colin Kaepernick actually looked pretty decent last week, especially against a team like Arizona. You don't really sure what they had, and they actually stayed in the game in the end, and then Arizona ended up winning that one by 3, but San Francisco against a team like New England, that one could be ugly, and New England favored by 13 in this one at home, and I don't think there's any way San Francisco takes that one. Tom Brady's just going to be firing wild. The Edelman, he's going to be firing wild to Martellus Bennett. Kaepernick probably going to be running for his life, even though the Patriots' defensive line, I'm not really sold on them yet. I think that they're okay. They do get to the quarterback once in a while, but Kaepernick, I think, with his offensive line is just going to get chewed up, and I'm taking the Patriots by 14 in this one.
Yeah, well, we talked about a game that I was going to, the LA Rams game. heading off to the Coliseum. But let's talk about you, Mr. Duchaine. You, I'm sure, are going to be heading down to CenturyLink to see the Philadelphia Eagles from Pennsylvania. No, I didn't make that up. I stole that from a blog, actually. I thought it was very clever, and I really like Pennsylvania. So whoever made that up, congratulations. That was pretty cool. And facing off against the Seattle Seahawks. Who you got in this one? I'm pretty sure I know who you got, but let's hear your analysis of this game going down CenturyLink afternoon on Sunday.
Yeah, with Carson Wentz, we saw him panic a little bit in Detroit. They ended up losing to the Lions earlier this season, and that was when they were actually firing on all cylinders. And that was one of the games that we kind of looked at and said, maybe Philadelphia ends up stealing one in Detroit. Detroit is a pretty hard place to win on the road, but then they lose in Detroit. And Seattle, a very tough place to win on the road. And I don't see Carson Wentz coming out there and really taking the game over and leading his team to a victory. That crowd is going to be absolutely insane. Seahawks are favored by 6.5 points at home. And unless Philadelphia comes out with some kind of a run game or some kind of trick plays or a flawless game plan, I don't think there's any way the Seahawks defense just caves against a team like Philadelphia and a rookie quarterback like Carson Wentz. And I just don't see it. I think the Seahawks defense has a big day, especially now that Cam's back. He's back in the rhythm. Earl just destroyed Rob Gronkowski last week, and I think guys like Aguilar are just going to go out there and get demolished against the Seahawks defense, and I'm really not sold on anything the Eagles really have to offer on offense or the receiving core or anything along those lines. They could play okay, and I think it's something that they can maybe come in, lose by 10, lose by 14, maybe make it respectable a little bit, but I don't see him coming in here and playing like Buffalo did or playing like a team like New England did. So I'm taking the Seahawks in this one, and I'm saying that the Hawks beat them by 10.
Yeah, man, I'm going with the Hawks. I always go with the Hawks, even if I think they'll lose, which is never. I'm going with the Hawks. Unfortunately, Wentz and the Eagles just are 1-4 on the road. Not a very impressive team. I think their only win was in Chicago, which, I mean, everyone's beating Chicago, so that doesn't really count. And they're not playing great. Brian Matthews doesn't scare anybody in the backfield. Jordan Matthews isn't really a number one guy. He's more of the possession 2-3 guy, maybe slot guy, but he's going to have a rough day against Richard Sherman, who had been struggling recently. But with Cam back, I think that trust with his safeties is back. I don't think that he really trusts Kelsey McCray to be there. If he got beaten, he was just thinking too much and caused a lot of distractions for him. A lot of frustration from Sherman. For those that have been watching the Seahawks, especially in recent weeks, although the Seahawks have been winning, if they hadn't been winning, a lot of the pressure and difficulties would have been on Sherman's shoulders. So I'm glad that Cam is back. Cam is playing great. We would definitely not have won that game last week if he wasn't Cam. I mean, he just we underestimate how good Cam is, and then when he comes back, we're just so grateful to have him. So Russ looked good. He did the little spin move that I like to see that lets me know that he's getting healthier. In the backfield, and the guy's chasing him, and then he gives him a little spin move and then breaks out to get a nice little dime. So that Russ is back. We just need him to shed the knee brace when he's comfortable. Obviously, let's go at Russ's pace and not try to rush him too much. Let him do his thing. And I loved what I saw from CJ Prosise. It was something that I've been expecting from Christine Michael, and I just never saw any of that. And the thing with Christine Michael, it reminded me a lot of Sean Alexander. It's, he would get hit, and instead of, hitting them back or fighting for an extra couple yards, he would just pretty much go down immediately. And I hated that. And with the way Prosise was playing, he was playing like he wanted a starting job. I don't think that he had an amazing game. He didn't, I don't think he was close to putting up 100 yards on the ground or passing. Although I believe he went over 100 combined. He was hitting people hard. He was running hard. He was trying to get the first downs. And, if we didn't have him, we would have had a rough day of Russ just trying to continue to keep the passing game going. Although we were doing that, I think the positive thing to look at, or there was a lot of things, positive things to look at, but something for the offense to look at is that we didn't really rely on Jimmy Graham the way that we have been doing. And there was a lot of other guys making plays. Doug Baldwin was making plays. CJ Prosise was making plays. Every single time Tyler Lockett made a play over 10 yards, we ended up with points on the board. So it was a great day for the Seahawks offense, and I really like what they're doing right now. Their offense is finally clicking. The defense is getting back healthy. We'll see if we can get Mike Bennett back within the next couple weeks. But I like that we're able to rest him and get whatever is going on with his knees or whatever is ailing him situated while the rest of the guys just continue to battle and continue to try to win. So I'm encouraged with what's the Seahawks are showing right now, but I think that they'll win easily a defensive battle. I don't think that it'll be a blowout one way or another. I think it'll be a defensive battle, no, whatever way you look at it. But I think the Seahawks just have too much firepower for the Eagles to come into CenturyLink and to knock them off. I don't think that's going to happen. But heading into the Sunday night game, a team that I messed up talking about a couple weeks ago, but I want to talk about again, is Washington. I'm refusing to not use their name. I'm going to try my best to not use it immediately after I say it this time. But I'm just going to use Washington just because, it's more respectful. And if anybody has any problems with any of the other names, please let me know. And I'll try to accommodate them. But the Washington team name is obviously in the news and has been affecting people for quite some time. And so personally, I just would like to use the name Washington. So, Brian, if you don't mind, if we could just call them Washington versus whoever they're facing, which is the Packers. Should be a good game. Two quarterbacks going at it. Kirk Cousins, who I am not a fan of, well documented, but on the flip side, he is playing very good football right now, playing very well with those weapons that he has in Washington right now. And Rob Kelly doing a good job of trying to take over that lead back role that has been something that Washington has been fighting to find all season long. They haven't had a guy that's been able to take over that lead back, but Rob Kelly's been able to step up and play relatively well. Defensively, they've been awful. Aside from Josh Norman and that secondary, the secondary has not looked good at all. The front seven looks okay. Nothing to ride home about. And the Packers, they're looking the exact same. The defense isn't anything to ride home about. There's a lot of flaws up and down that team. They're not looking like one of the perennial powerhouses that they do each and every year. And it's because of Aaron Rodgers. There's been so much blame placed on everyone else, and it's just Aaron Rodgers he's just not playing as well as you'd expect. Not that he's not playing good. He's playing very good football right now, but it's not what you'd expect from, a perennial MVP candidate. He's playing more, like a low-tier, solid quarterback, but definitely not putting up Aaron Rodgers-like numbers. Turnovers are high. Pretty much almost reached his single-season total from last year. 10 games through the year so far. So definitely something to look forward to look at. And I'm not sure why. The offense is looking good. The weapons are there. The run game isn't as strong as it has been. Maybe that could possibly be a reason. Eddie Lacy, I believe, done for the season. Starks is back, but I believe that job should be Ty Montgomery's. They were doing fine with Montgomery back there, but I'm not sure. They picked up Christine Michael to try to get something going. So I'm sure that I'm not sure, but for sure they're worried about that run game. And I don't know what Rodgers' issue is, but I'm going with just because I don't like Cousins. I'm just not a Cousins fan. I can never go with him. I'm going with the Packers in this one. Who do you got in this game with Washington and the Packers?
Yeah, Washington's actually a 3-point favorite, and we talked about it the last show we did. You want to call them the Washington Water Bears. So we're going to go with the Washington Water Bears against the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers, I just feel like, are going to be out for revenge. Like you said, the Patriots were going to be after getting beat by the Seahawks at home. Green Bay just got wiped, absolutely wiped by the Titans. And in this one, like you say, Kirk Cousins trying his best to utilize his weapons and all that, but they are at home. They are a favorite, but Green Bay, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to figure out that secondary. Like you said, that secondary is not super good. They have some young guys on that secondary on Washington's team. The Water Bears are going to look to, but I say the Packers get them. I say Aaron Rodgers has a big day. my guy in this one. I think he has a big day. And I've still been waiting for Richard Rodgers to surface. I don't know what's going on there, if they just completely are going away from him and utilizing other tight ends instead, but still do something and come out and prove me wrong that you can actually do something for once. But I'm picking against the spread of 3 points, which is the Water Bears in favor. Hey, to win this one.
Taking Green Bay to win this one. Well, that, I guess, takes us to the international game, which I know that you are a huge fan of. I saw you tweeting about it earlier today that you said that you love these international games. You couldn't wait for this one. The last one of the season, we got the Houston Texans facing off against the Oakland Raiders. I guess I want to get your take on this game. Mexico City is our location. Aztec Estadios. For all my Spanish speakers, I apologize. I know I butchered that terribly. But, Brian, I want to get your take before I put in my analysis, if you don't mind, of this game heading into our Monday night international matchup.
I think it's weird. They go from playing in London, trying to get that international crowd going and try to get more fans from overseas, and then all of a sudden they just go down to Mexico and play a game. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and it's like playing international games to me. I'm just not a huge fan. When you look at it, Houston versus Oakland, you're going to have more of a home field advantage. It'll be less traveling time for Houston going down there, and then you have Oakland and Derek Carr trying to technically at home to the home team, even though they're playing in Mexico, which that doesn't really make sense to me. And you're really forfeiting a home game to play in Mexico, where Houston is actually the closer team. To me at all. And then you have your boy, Brock Osweiler, trying to tear up the Oakland defense. And Oakland defense has actually looked pretty good. Chris Irvin stepping up, not even in the starting lineup, and I think that just shows their defensive line, and they actually have guys that are decent enough to beat out some of the rookies, and they don't have to start these rookies that are still learning the system. Decent, and then you have receivers on the other side like Crabtree, and they're all right. And Derek Carr's still a young guy, but he's actually looked really well playing a strong division. And this one strictly because I'm not sold on the Houston defense, and like you, I'm not really sold on Brock Osweiler leading a team to victory. So, even though could be interesting playing in Mexico. It's not really an Oakland home game, but they are a 6-point favorite. I'd say they win by 7. This computer died.